Hey everybody, today we are debating whether or not man lived alongside dinosaurs, as well as whether or not man could have lived alongside dinosaurs, and we're starting right now. Ladies and gentlemen, stoked to have you here. This is going to be an epic time. We are thrilled to have this debate, a brand new topic we've never had before. It's been a wild day. Thank you for your patience. I'm so sorry. I know that we've talked about the stream starting soon screen and how we wanted to make sure that we didn't have that showing anymore for like 5 to 10 minutes. And so what we want to do is say sorry about that. That definitely took longer than I'd hoped. And thanks so much for your patience. We're thrilled to have
Oh,
you
sorry,
here.
I was panicking there. My computer froze up right when I clicked the link, and then my PowerPoint it was a disaster. But it's good to see you, gentlemen. RJ, are you a creationist?
It's
Are you
good to
creation?
standing for truth. I'm so sorry. I don't know. We started without you, but we're glad to have you here. We figured that you'd arrive, but so we're on air already.
Beautiful.
You bet. So
Were
glad
you,
to
were
have
you
you here.
asking if I was a creationist?
Yeah, are you a creationist yet?
You debated me a while back, isn't
Yeah,
it?
I thought I converted you.
Oh, there's
Oh,
not a
maybe after
snowball's
this debate,
chance
I'll
in
All
that.
right, hold on. Sorry, I hate to interrupt. I'm excited to hear you guys continue. Just want to get through a couple of things. For anybody who is new here, we will have a question and answer session at the end, and we love your questions. So you can ask a question to one or the other or both of the debaters, and we are thrilled to read them off. If you put at Modern Day Debate at the start of your question in the live chat, it'll make it a little easier for me as I try to fish out every one of them and put them into a list that we hopefully get through. And also, if this is your first time here, consider hitting that subscribe button. We are thrilled to have you here, whether you be Christian, atheist, Muslim, Jedi, or even Sith, as we like to say. We're thrilled to have you here as we try to build a community that welcomes everybody and as also welcomes different ideas. This is one of the more unique debates we've ever had in terms of topics. So we welcome ideas of all sorts, looking for that intellectual diversity. Both of the speakers have their links in the description. Because we had a quick switch up, hopefully, I want to let you know, hopefully Skylar Fiction's family is doing okay. Skylar Fiction at the last minute said that there's a family emergency, and that's why he couldn't make it. So he was sorry that he couldn't be here. We love Skylar. He's been a huge, just a great friend of the channel, and we love him. And so hopefully everything's okay with his family. And we were kind of like, well, should we postpone? I said, Skylar, will have you on in the future. So expect Standing for Truth and Skylar to debate the same topic. And we were like, we don't want to just cancel for tonight, though. So is there somebody that would also like to do this topic? Spur of the moment. And RJ was willing to do it. So we really appreciate his willingness to come on short notice. And I can tell you, he is very well read. So don't worry about RJ being unprepared. He may have had 45 minutes to prepare, but he's definitely prepared much more than that as he reads this stuff all the time. Last, want to quick jump in with introductions for our speakers. We have Standing for Truth, who will be taking the yes position for tonight, thus he will start. And this is a kind of a hybrid format of both formal and informal. So we're going to have opening statements from each speaker, then we're going to have rebuttals, followed by an open discussion section. And also we're going to have closings. So I'll explain this as we go through the format, but also want to introduce RJ before we get started, who has been a super friend of the channel. Been a friend for a long time, since I think the first time we kind of merged into a debate
Kent
channel.
Hovind.
That's right. RJ debated Kent Hovind. Long friends, long lost friends. So with that, we want to jump right into it. So I will start the clock for you, Standing for Truth. And, want to mention too, there are a couple of debates coming up. The Great Debate Community, I just want to plug them. Steve McRae has been really kind to us, as well as Kyle. They are hosting a debate on conservatism versus liberalism tonight. That's at the Great Debate Community, which is linked in the description. So that's tonight. Hopefully you can check that out. And then also JMD Apologetics. He will also be hosting a debate very soon, and I'll give you more details about that, but I want to jump into our debate as we go. I'll give you more details about that, though. So, switching over to Standing for Truth's PowerPoint presentation. Standing for Truth, thanks for being here, and the floor is yours.
Well, thanks so much, James, and thanks so much, RJ, for filling in here. This should be a fun discussion. I'm used to debating evolution, so it's good to change it up once in a while. So let's get started then. Debate, did dinosaurs or could dinosaurs have lived with man? Now, when I look at this picture, when I think of Jurassic Park, I sometimes assume that the evolutionists think of Jurassic Park and the massive T-Rex and all the commotion and tyranny that it caused when they think of dinosaurs and living with man. Therefore, they think it to be impossible. And it's pretty common for evolutionists to make the claim that since many dinosaurs were gigantic and dangerous, they couldn't have possibly lived with humans, as people would be easy prey for them. What the evolutionists don't acknowledge, however, is that according to their own timeline, humans have lived with plenty of large, dangerous animals over thousands of years, many of which are now extinct. Look at my slides here. We see the woolly mammoth and the American mastodon, with the same size as modern elephants, as well as this extinct relative of the Komodo dragon, which was likely encountered by the early settlers of Australia. Now, these types of animals would have proved to be a significant threat to people if anybody got close to them, and yet humans were still able to work around them, and in some cases hunt them. If you acknowledge that humans coexisted with these animals, it isn't that big of a step to suggest humans lived with dinosaurs, many of which were the same size or smaller than the animals listed in these slides. Here we can see the auroch, the short-faced bear, glyptodonts. These, even according to the evolutionists, all lived with man. Evolutionists have hijacked dinosaurs and used them to teach millions of years of evolution. When you start with the Bible, dinosaurs start to make a lot of sense. We see the geologic column here. Can man and dinosaur coexist? Well, when we look to the Bible, dinosaurs and man, according to our model, did not live in the same habitat. Just like today, we see that different creatures and different animals live in different habitats. In the pre-flood world, we see certain fossils that are usually buried together, and dinosaur fossils are usually buried with gymnosperms, pines, and naked sea plants, whereas mammal fossils are usually buried with things such as flowering plants. What does this actually indicate? This indicates two different ecosystems. For example, since we're talking about dinosaurs here, although lived at the same time of man, did not necessarily live in the same areas or habitats. They were overcome by the flood at different times during the advancing of the waters, which does explain why we don't find them buried together. It is evident that as the floodwaters rose, they buried organisms in the order that they were encountered. The accepted major groups known in the fossil record are explained by their appearance according to where they lived and not when they lived. So we looked at burial by ecosystems and habitats. Now, we can actually look to geology, which does point to a watery cataclysm. Much geologic evidence suggests rapid plate tectonics. This isn't the topic of the debate, but when we look to the layering and we look to the dinosaurs and where they're found, we can also look to the flood to confirm that. So man and dinosaur could obviously coexist, but the question is, did they? We looked at dinosaurs in the Bible. Why don't we see the word dinosaur in the Bible? I hear this question from evolutionists all the time. Well, the word dinosaur is a modern word invented in 1841. The King James Version of the Bible, on the other hand, was translated in 1611. The word dinosaur did not exist at the time the King James Bible was translated, obviously. And so it's not surprising that we would not find the word dinosaur in the Bible. We also don't find the word computer in the Bible either. Dragons. We do find the word dragon in the Bible. These giant creatures known as dinosaurs were simply called dragons. Sightings of dragons / dinosaurs have been documented and recorded throughout history. Eyewitnesses from all cultures around the earth, from England to China, have legends and stories about dragons. There are even more than 20 references to dinosaurs in the Bible. This whole controversy could easily have been avoided if they had just called dinosaur bones dragon bones. We see that the evidence that humans knew about dinosaurs before the science of paleontology was founded. How much time do I have, James?
You got
3 minutes.
I've got about 3.5, but I started a little bit late, so.
Awesome. So we see accurate artwork depicting dinosaurs and allegedly extinct creatures is observed, proving that ancient people saw living dinosaurs. The evolutionary community is baffled and surprised when plants and animals assumed to have gone extinct at the same time as the dinosaurs are suddenly found to be alive. These are known as living fossils. The coelacanth comes to mind. Here's a picture of the coelacanth. The evidence. Dinosaurs have been documented in history by eyewitnesses such as Marco Polo, Herodotus, and Alexander the Great. There exists today a multitude of cave drawings, mosaics, sculptures, and paintings of dinosaurs from ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, Cambodia, Europe, Australia, all over the earth. Here's a picture here that was drawn, I believe, in Utah. This picture here, Bishop Bell's dinosaur. In the 15th century, we have Bishop Bell's tomb. We know when he died, and so we know how old this is, and this is much, much before dinosaur fossils have really been found. Not until the 1800s were dinosaur fossils actually found in bulk. We find carved animals in this tomb, and some of these animals, as you've seen, look exactly like dinosaurs, sauropod dinosaurs to be exact. Many of the carved animals are animals alive today, plus dinosaurs. What more proof do you need? We see this painting of the plesiosaur-like creature. The Australian Aborigines painted this painting of a creature that they believe lives in a lake that they won't go near because they're afraid of it. This painting looks exactly like a plesiosaur, which is not a true dinosaur, but had flippers and lived in the water, of course. We know there are countless legends of lake monsters and thousands of testimonies. Was everybody lying? That's what the evolutionist is going to have to conclude. People clearly knew about dinosaurs. I just had to pick a few here, but there's tons. You can look at them yourselves. People have obviously always known about dinosaurs if they drew them. It's conclusive evidence, really. The evidence is clear. Man coexisting with dinosaurs is obvious after looking at the overwhelming amount of evidence. The evidence is staggering due to the endless artifacts, drawings, carvings, statues, mosaics, and depictions throughout history of various dinosaurs or other thought to be extinct animals. We look to the Bible, we hear of a beast called Behemoth who had a tail like a cedar tree. People who have to hold to that evolutionary worldview, they'll say things like Behemoth was obviously a hippo or an elephant. We can go through this, but obviously where the Bible says he moves his tail like a cedar, well, if you've looked at an elephant and a hippo's tail looks nothing like a cedar. For sake of time, I'll move on here. It's all based on their worldview when people say Behemoth cannot be a dinosaur. We see historical accounts, St. George killing a dragon, Beowulf, Alexander the Great. We even see it in empirical scientific evidence, soft tissue and dino bones. New scientific findings have revealed amazingly preserved dinosaur bones, which contain soft tissues, flexible blood vessels, and intact cells. Did you say that was time, James?
Nope, you got about 10 seconds.
This indicates these bones are thousands of years old and not millions. Obviously, the evolutionists have rescue devices. We can get into that if necessary. So thank you so much. I mean, we see stories all around the earth, but for sake of time, I can't exactly get into that. Hopefully, Abembe, look at that. Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. And we'll give, because we started a bit late there, what we'll do is give RJ maybe an extra 30 seconds. And that way, we will give him plenty of time
no
as well.
problem with me.
So, RJ, I have the clock set for you for 8.5 minutes, and the floor is yours.
Okie doke. Gosh, this is like old home week. I'm seeing standing repeat every trope of young earth creationist apologetics here. Masses of secondary arguments. Let's start with the basics that he left out. There is no instance anywhere on earth of any critter that is believed to have died out in the Mesozoic that is in any horizon in which any hominid, let alone Homo sapiens, is known. That would apply to not only dinosaurs, but therapsids and all the other little critters of that period. Claiming that this is due to varying habitat is false. There is no creationist paper I know of that has ever been able to make a biogeographical claim that this notion that they lived in different habitats is correct. I'd love to see that kind of material, but they are nowhere near that. All you get is this secondary trope stuff. We've got the notion, it doesn't matter about how dangerous they are. If they're not in the same period, they can't exist. Just as Marco Polo never had a gunfight at the OK Corral because he lived at a completely different period. So relying on that is just absolute twaddle. Mary Schweitzer was brought up. That is particularly a good point that Brian mentions. Schweitzer is a devout Christian. She's a regular paleontologist, and she is annoyed as hell at the creationists that are misrepresenting her work. Nothing in that work supports the young Earth creationist dogma. I noticed that Standing brought up the Cambodian case. I know he didn't show a picture of it. This is one of these examples where supposedly a stegosaur is depicted at Angkor Wat, I think one of the Cambodian temples. No, it's not. And all it is they are looking at these leaf motifs that figure in their background designs that made something that's probably a wild hog. Nothing about it looks stegosaurian otherwise, and it happens to have these leaf motifs atop it. And creationists have come in there and gone, oh gosh, that's a stegosaur. Never mind the absolute last of paleontology. The credulity, the pathetic credulity of creationists on this point is one of the sillier aspects of it. The attempt to try to drag every little scraplet in to try to argue that human beings existed along with dinosaurs. But remember, Standing is forced to do this because of the young Earth creationist dogma. He has got to have dinosaurs, but why not just dinosaurs? Why not therapsids? Why not everything else that we know in the fossil record? It's because kids know about dinosaurs. They're very popularly known in the way that the therapsids in the reptile-mammal transition aren't. So they're forced into it. And they have latched on to that misrepresentation of Job, the behemoth and Leviathan. Nothing about it describes a dinosaur. The best they can do is to take that reference to its making its tail stiff like a cedar and exploding that to mean, oh, it obviously means as big as a cedar tree. The text does not say that. Who the heck gave Henry Morris or Dwayne Gish or Ken Ham leave to rewrite the Old Testament to fit their dogmas? No mention of a long neck. No mention of, it says supposedly it lives in the river and eats grass and it's terribly dangerous. Well, dinosaurs, the sauropods couldn't eat grass of that type. They had rake-like teeth. They also didn't live in rivers. It doesn't even fit the model. He may want to disparage the hippopotamus, but that fits perfectly. Hippos to this day, we don't have to guess how dangerous they are. They are, in fact, kill more people than lions and tigers do. They're terribly dangerous. The Egyptians feared the hell out of them. They created a monster in their afterlife that was part crocodile, part lion, and part hippopotamus because they were so dangerous. So the idea that God, and remember, Job is not a text on zoology. It's a God, a story about how powerful God is and the testing of somebody's faith. It's a metaphorical tale. The idea that they're going to scavenge that part to try to get systematics in there is absolutely ridiculous. There's also quite a literature on how dragon mythologies do in fact form. Whoops. You still got me going here? We suddenly have a power surge here in Spokane. Eek.
We got it.
I'm still on. Okay. Suddenly I saw absolutely nothing and I'm still here. Okay. There's been quite a literature on the origin of dragon mythology. We've literally got one in the case of Leonardo da Vinci, who actually painted sketched out a design for a dragon, and he explained how he came up with these images in his head, not because he'd ever seen an actual dragon, and yet there have been creationist websites that have tried to argue that he supposedly had seen a live dragon running around in the Renaissance. No, human beings make up critters all the time. They create chimeric forms. So many of these images that are up there that you saw in Standing's bit are things he has copied from creationist websites, and I'm going to want to see whether or not he's ever even tried to fact-check any of these things. I haven't seen any sign that he's fact-checked any of his other material that he does with Sanford's genetic entropy or these other fields, and I'd like to know whether he's ever tried to do it on this front. So we're stuck with the following dynamics. One, There is no paleontological evidence for humans and dinosaurs or anything of the same time frames ever coexisting. There are no creationist papers that have ever made such an assertion. He's constructed his entire argument secondarily from trying to do it by legends and mismatches and all the rest. Then we've got the fact that the creationists are showing hypercredulity. Even the gang at ICR and AIG tend to kind of steer clear of a lot of this cryptozoology stuff, but the bottom feeder level that Kent Hovind operates at, and Carl Baugh, Ron Wyatt, the late Ron Wyatt, these various ones have just hilariously open-minded credulity on these things, and they don't deal with the other matter of that biogeography, habitat matter. The technical literature on what habitats actually existed in the past is vast, and creationists have never bumped into that literature, and therefore a parasite like Standing for Truth coming in secondarily isn't going to know about it either. So if you want to write up your monograph, Standing, and get beyond a PowerPoint image and actually try to document at technical source level any of these claims, have at it. But I haven't seen that happen yet. We're at 6:32. I basically covered the basics here, extempore. Add whatever time I've got onto the open discussion because I'd like to play with that more.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. We've got about 1 minute and 50 seconds we will add to the discussion.
Yeah, I like that discussion much better than this.
You bet. Next.
Hope I did well with 0 time to prepare.
Next we will start up the rebuttal. So 6 minutes are on the clock, and I will start the timer on your first word, Standing for Truth.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for that opening there, RJ. We'll get right into it. RJ talks about the same old tropes, for example. Well, you can find all of these dinosaurs, so-called dinosaurs that were just known as dragons before the word dinosaur was invented in 1841, I believe. You can find these and all these sightings and artifacts and drawings and paintings and mosaics and historical accounts. You can find people that are not young earth creationists who actually believe in this, people that are actually evolutionists and hold to an evolutionary worldview that say, there's substantial evidence that man obviously seen dinosaurs in order for them to actually draw them and paint them and talk about these accounts. He talks about ecosystem and habitats not being a good explanation, and that's because he assumes that a global flood did not happen. And at the end of the day, that's not the topic of the debate. The debate is to give a theoretical account if dinosaurs, if it is possible that they could have lived with man. But at the end of the day, to put that objection to bed, we do see a ton of evidence that the earth was once underwater. RJ here is going to assume that the earth's rock layers formed over millions of years, but there exists massive geological evidence that demonstrates sufficiently that the earth's layers and rocks are young. Fast erosion rates, worldwide sedimentary strata deposition, pancake layered rock strata, and cold rock slabs deep in Earth's mantle, just to name a few that come to mind, tell us we live on a young planet that was subjected to a cataclysmic global flood, and ecosystems and habitat based on what we know about the pre-flood world, higher elevations, supercontinent, explains it perfectly. But at the end of the day, he needs to explain how the fact that the science of paleontology did not develop until the early 1800s, and that the first complete dinosaur was not constructed until the 1800s, obviously, and the word dinosaur was not invented till 1841. Where do all these pictures come about? Where do all these historical accounts? He mentioned the Cambodia Stegosaurus picture. I didn't put that one because I myself am unsure of that one. The pictures that I did put up, I can show him those again in the discussion period. I'd like to hear an explanation from him because there's no way around it. These look just like sauropod dinosaurs. And what we know about paleontology, these ancient men must have seen these dinosaurs. He talks about the soft tissue, and Mary Schweitzer, she discovered that a fossilized T-Rex femur had preserved bone marrow. Yes, she is a Christian, but she holds to an evolutionary worldview. So At the end of the day, he needs to answer the question as to how could soft, stretchy tissues be preserved in dinosaur remains that evolutionists claim are no younger than 65 million years old. Even in the best state of bone preservation, the soft inner parts should have completely rotted away. And yes, there are rescue devices. There has been no conclusive. There's a lot of guesswork. There's a lot of, hypothesizing going on. But at the end of the day, if he admitted to this, to the obvious, that's going to call into question his entire evolutionary fairy tale and story. What we see in the fossil record is a larger biodiversity, back in the pre-flood world. And when it comes to cladistics and taxonomy and the therapsids, reptile mammals that he talks about, I mean, we see that obviously based on pre-existing heterozygosity, everything that we see was bigger, better, more abundant. That's what we see in the fossil record. It all points to a biblical creation model. He talked about here how it was the hippo with, you would point to the hippo, not the elephant. But like I said, he wants to kind of wave away the fact that, the behemoth is described as moving his tail like a cedar. And when you look at a hippo, when you look at an elephant, that doesn't meet the description. It talks about how the strength is in his hips and stomach muscles. Well, that rules out a hippo right off the bat. Elephant, sauropod dinosaur, maybe. But we've already ruled out the elephant. I mean, in order for him to admit that this is an account of an actual dinosaur, would call into question his entire worldview. And it does say in chapter 40 of Job that, he is confident, though the Jordan gushes into his mouth, the river may rage, yet he is not disturbed. All of the description that we see in Job, when you actually chart it out with these three animals, there's no way around it. It was a dinosaur of some kind. So I want to see how, if man did not live with these creatures, how did artists throughout ancient history and in cultures all over the world happen to recreate these beasts thousands of years ago to coincidentally look identical to what we see in the dinosaur books and museums today? That's an important question for him to answer. Forget about the Cambodia stegosaur. We don't need it. The ones that I provided, the ones that I presented, I mean, you can go to Utah and see this clear picture of a sauropod dinosaur on the walls. I want to hear an answer from him. How much time do I have there, James?
Hold on 1 sec, I lost track. 26 seconds. 26
seconds. I mean, we can see the historical accounts. I don't know. He just waves away Alexander the Great, St. George, Beowulf, for example. It's talked about how there's a dragon called Grendel, and he was known to have a heavy claw on his finger, yet had a fairly small arm. And it's known that Beowulf ripped off this arm. But what's interesting is that we have a dinosaur with smaller arms, which its remains are actually found in Europe. RJ probably knows about this, and that's the Baryonyx. And that name literally means heavy claw. Its arms are actually smaller as well. So these descriptions of Grendel and Baryonyx are actually amazingly similar. So at the end of the day, ancient historians and writers obviously believe creatures like dragons were real, and they describe seeing them firsthand. Were they all lying? Were all these historical accounts, sightings of sea monsters, plesiosaur-like animals, are they all lying? Is the question that I want to ask RJ. Thanks so much, James.
Thank you. Sorry, I lost track of time. Okay, whatever. I think it was roughly 6 minutes. So with that, we will go to the 6-minute rebuttal. There's so many questions. People, I love your guys' enthusiasm, and people are excited. It's the chat is popping right now. So
it's a fun debate topic.
So with that, a reminder, if you do have a super chat, thanks for your super chats, by the way, those of you who sent them in. And if you do have one, basically you can make a comment toward one of the debaters if you'd like, and they get a chance to respond, as well as all the super chats go to the top of the list. Of course, we don't only read off super chats. We're going to try to read through them quickly and then read through as many questions quickly. And I always forget that. Thanks for your patience. SJ, or RJ, sorry. She's in the chat, so I've got SJ on my mind. Okay, so...
too many initials.
Yeah. Thanks for your patience. The floor is yours.
Okay. Oh, I'll say to Jackson, you can put my website up there because you got a damn wrench. The SFT is still repeating these mantras about rescue devices, which you're quite right, one of the ones in the chat, that's just the scientific method. These aren't rescue devices. This is the whole method of presenting data. The difficulty that he wants to evade around is how tendentious and secondary all this is. How do people paint pictures of things they've never seen? Human beings do that. We know Leonardo da Vinci did that. They had all sorts of things. One of the pictures that he put up, not me, he, of that supposedly standing dinosaur, that is not what dinosaurs stood as. Their physical layout is different than that. If you, maybe you're thinking that somebody might have copied a 1930s picture of a standing dinosaur, but I don't think that's even necessary. Human beings come up with stuff. The ones who come up with these arguments invariably never pay attention to the whole range of the art, not just a single snippet. They don't look to see how things are depicted in lots and lots and lots of different pictures to work out whether or not what they're seeing means what they want it to. He says about I bringing up Cambodia. He brought up the Cambodian example, and then he wants to flee from it because it's a terrible example. All of these things are terrible and tendentious. He says that supposedly evolutionists who claims that there was coexistence, please, during the interaction, let's bring up who these people are. They're not regular paleontologists, none that I know of. Now, we're talking about how supposedly there's a presupposition on my part of the old world thing, bullpucky. The fact of the matter is I'm looking at the data field and evidence. I see what the evolutionary position is, yes. I can also see what the creationists put forward in their own papers, in Answers in Genesis, at Institute for Creation Research, Duane Gish's material. I've already gone into a lot of this in the Dinomania chapter in my old tip work. And I can observe how they avoid the data field. It is false to claim that young Earth creationists have offered anything like a substantive accounting of what these biogeographical zones were pre-flood. Not Todd Wood, not John Woodmarap, not any of the ones in this field. They have cartoon versions, like that little itty-bitty cartoon version of the geologic column that he showed earlier. Nothing on any level of detail. Now, if some creationists want to come up with a thing where they actually account for all the data field in all these different areas, the Ishel Golosto in South America, where so many of the therapsids and early dinosaurs are coming from, the Karoo Formation in South Africa, where so many of the therapsids are occurring back in the Permian period, every one of the other deposits that we can find up here in the Drumheller up in Canada. Supposedly, all these things happen simultaneously. All of this happened at once. Too much is supposedly happening, all crammed together in this fantastical cartoon world that occurs, where if you look at long term over how creationists have evolved over time, they're constantly having to move and adjust their goalposts, but they never actually get onto a field where they deal with the whole data field. That's been the case all the way down the line. Perhaps Standing doesn't read older material. Perhaps he's stuck copying material from 21st century creationist apologetics. You can't see that whole range of what's going on. But we still have to deal with the forensic fact that there are no coterminous dinosaurs and humans. Nothing. Zip, zero, nada. And the fact is that once you get up to Homo erectus, you've got hominids living all across Africa and into Asia and into Europe. These are the same environments in which underneath them in the fossils, you're finding a completely different systems that are going on over time as the climate shifts and mountain ranges are formed. You can't get all of this crammed into a short time frame that supposedly was only 4,500 years ago. The Egyptians have to be moved. It's no coincidence that the creationists now have had to start to shredding other people's historical records because they're conflicting with the young Earth creationist dogma. So they have to move every single bit of Egypt down past the flood. No, this is a mess. And so long as Standing goes in there, I still want to hear him ask the question, how or do you at any time fact check the source claims that are being offered by any of these websites that you're drawing off of? And how do you account for the 100% failure of every one of the upper echelon creationists, including Andrew Snelling, to come up with a workable schema of what they think happened during this supposed flood as to what lived where and how did it die out and what was the microclimate in those areas? They've had decades to work on this and they have had a complete failure. And I'm at 5 minutes. I still got another minute to go. Add that to the discussion.
You bet. So we've got about 3 minutes we'll add to the discussion. And with that, Standing for Truth, we will jump to the next section. So that is the open discussion, and that will be for about 28 minutes. 28 minutes. And the floor is yours, gentlemen. Thanks so much.
Yeah. So I've been wanting to ask you this for a long time standing, is what procedure do you do to source fact check the claims that you see on creationist websites and in articles? Standing, have you been raptured? If he has been raptured, James, you realize you're stuck here with me.
Oh, he's on mute.
No, there's no rapture, not yet. Yeah, sorry, I was on mute there. Okay, so that's why you can hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I noticed in your rebuttal there. I appreciate it. You talked about how, oh, you know, I want you to point to one evolutionary author, evolutionist who, you know, believes that man and dinosaur did coexist. Well, the information that I got regarding, for example, Mokli Abembe, you know, where they think that there's sauropod dinosaurs, the Congo pygmies, and the Africans. They describe animals, and the descriptions are actually rather similar, RJ. But his
And
name
who's
is
the
Rory,
paleontologist involved in that?
his name is Rory Nugent. I believe he is an explorer. And he holds to an evolutionary worldview, but even he
Does he have any technical training?
okay, so it has to be somebody with the appropriate training that can only conclude. I mean, if this guy holds to an evolutionary worldview, and even
Lots of people hold to evolutionary points of view, and in a weird way, there are ancient astronaut people who believe in an evolutionary point of view. Well, by evolutionary, we're talking about natural branching, common descent. We're talking about the standard geological frame. Rory Nugent, I'll have to look through my reference bibliography, but I'm not holding my breath that he will have any technical expertise in this area. So how did you determine
how many of these?
Would
Well,
you
wait a minute.
place Rory Nugent?
I want to ask you real quick, just before we move off. I'll answer your question, but how many of these paleontologists actually went to, say, Africa or the Congo and actually studied and did the explorations and interviews themselves, like Mr. Nugent here, and concluded, okay, well, this Mokli Abembe, you know, it does appear that it is a supposed living dinosaur. I mean, the reports of dinosaurs.
Gerald Nash probably.
They're not new. They've always. But is it totally out of the question that, for example, the size of, say, you know, Africa in general, and these swamps, and, you know, these areas where these Congo pygmies are actually describing these types of sauropod-like animals, is it totally out of the question, according to you, that they could actually be describing accurately what they've seen? I mean,
how much have you read Adrian Mayer's book on mythology and fossils?
No. So is he trying to address all
the woman, Adrian? She's one of the workers in this field. Do you, in fact, read much of anything other than the stuff that you get on creationist websites? And I still would like to know, you haven't mentioned how you fact check stuff.
Well, I'm trying to tell you that most of this that I'm presenting to you regarding the historical accounts, these descriptions and accounts found in the Congo and in Africa, I didn't get those from Young Earth Creationist websites. But obviously that evidence and that data fits very well within our.
How did you fact check it for accuracy?
Well, you can just look at the sources that they're providing. You can, well, for one, that's why
I'm asking you, did you look at the sources they were providing?
Of course, that's why the pictures that I actually presented.
And what do you think that source consists of? When you look at something Nugent coming up, what do you think qualifies as a primary source that he is presenting?
Well, I know you like to, you know, go into the whole source methods version of debating. Yeah. If you want to avoid actually answering, you know, the data itself, you always talk about data and source checking.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what we're trying to find out.
You can go to Utah yourself and look at this. A clear sauropod dinosaur. There's your source.
Do you know of any sauropod that stands on its hind legs?
Are you trying to say that these pictures have to look identical anatomically to these? I mean, for example, if I'm drawing a picture of a lion or a tiger, I mean, there's going to be some minor differences.
So how do you know that what they're drawing a picture of? How much of the literature on prehistoric paintings have you looked into to see what their whole range of their images are?
Well, let me share screen real quick, and I want you to tell me. Can you see my screen there, James?
Yeah, that's a famous one that's put forward a lot. What
so
other
is that?
images? That one has been knocking around for a very long time in the cryptozoology and creationism frame. I want to ask you, how typical is that of their art?
How typical is this of their art? I mean, I had to pick and choose out of, it seemed like hundreds to actually put into the presentation.
Okay,
I don't know
what else
what
did they depict? Were you able to identify everything that they depicted?
No, I mean, there's so many of them that, some of them are a little bit more obscure, some of these more, I mean, like, for example, this one here, I don't know. Where is it? Right here.
Here's the point that I'm doing on the whole problem with crypto.
Right, I don't know exactly what, dinosaur that is, but, at the end of the scales on it.
What makes you think it's a dinosaur at all?
Well, you can see that it's some type. If you actually look at this wall, I think it's in Iraq, I believe. There's pictures, I believe, of a lion, of real animals that are living today, and then this. So how come they have all these real animals and then suddenly something?
Are you claiming that people can't invent stuff? Let me ask you, you brought up Herodotus. Do you also claim Herodotus was correct when he was describing the gold mining ants?
Well, I'd have to look at that exact account, the gold mining ants. I mean, I know he's talking about, I don't have the account right in front of me when he talks about.
Did you ever think to investigate, but before you name dropped Herodotus, did you ever bother to look into the context of any of these things to find out whether it necessarily meant what you thought it did?
Well, I'll answer that question if you want to just admit, okay, if you don't want to tell me what this animal is here on the screen, do you want me to answer if you want to just admit defeat, hey, that looks like a sauropod dinosaur, they must have just imagined it, then I'll go into.
It's got, which end is the front and which end is the back?
So this would be your tail like a cedar tree, just as described in.
And why do you decide that that's a tail and not a head?
This right here ahead. The only other description I've seen was somebody thought that was a squirrel. Does that look like a squirrel to you?
I don't know of anybody that said that that's a squirrel. I don't know where you're getting the material from. What is the weird wing-like feature sticking up from the what might or might not be the shoulders?
This right here?
Yeah.
Well, I assume this is the head, this is the neck, this is your
assuming.
tail like a cedar, and these are your.
Okay, assuming are you now? Now I'm supposedly to be castigated for my alleged making evolutionary assumptions about things. Why are you justified in your assumptions on this blob of, by the way, how big is the picture?
Well, I actually zoomed in to get this picture, so.
Yeah, but do you have a scale on the original picture?
Not right here in the thing, but I do. Well, I zoomed into this. You could just go on the internet and get it. Actually, the gentleman I got this from, he went to Utah to investigate it himself, and he even said himself as he walked towards it. For one, there was many, people. I guess a lot of people go and see this, and they said, "Oh, look at that dinosaur! Look at that dinosaur!" But how come so many people are concluding that's some type of?
Well, because we live in a culture of things. Are you unaware of the whole subculture of people who think that they have seen UFOs? And so now they go down to Sedona and they think they see UFOs there as well, or Area 51. Everybody has these cultural tropes. One of the problems with some of these legends is whether the provenance under which they were occurring, how far back in the culture that they go. This particular, I love this particular this picture here.
Yeah, this one. So is that not a plesiosaur, or will I go the?
If it is as it's depicted, did you check to see whether or not this, how far back that thing can be actually dated, if at all?
This one can be. What's the exact date that these Australian Aborigines painted this this creature? I'm not too sure, but apparently in Australia, this lake, they don't even want to go near. Because
did you get this from a website, or did you get it from a technical article on Aboriginal art?
This specific one I got from the name of the book. It's with me on my shelf here. I can't pick it up. But this gentleman actually went to all the different locations. For example, the one in Utah.
Who is the gentleman in question?
I haven't been to the. What's that?
Who is the gentleman in question from whose book? Go and get the book if you can grab it. If it's in your house, go grab it.
Okay, here. Okay, I'm gonna go grab it. And as I'm grabbing, I want you to say, just hypothetically, if this picture was before, okay, if this was painted, say, before 1841, when we know that the word dinosaur was invented and the science of paleontology just started, coming about, would you conclude, okay, these Aborigines must have seen a plesiosaur like
kid. We'll have the spiel when you come back with the book. I want to know who wrote this. And then we can find out whether or not it's a reliable source. Why didn't you put the source up?
Okay, so are you saying that if it's a young Earth? So here it is right here. So his name is, he's a researcher, he's an explorer, he's a writer. His name is Vance Nelson. I'm sure you're more than aware of him.
So what did you do to check out? Tell me about Vance Nelson's CVs. What reason do you find him reliable? What's the skivvy on it?
Well, first off, I find him to be reliable because I don't know about you, but I've never actually been to these locations. For example, the one in Utah, Bishop Bell's Cathedral over here.
What's the name of the book, by the way?
He's actually been there to actually look at them.
Well, maybe. What's the name of the book?
The name of the book is Untold Secrets of Planet Earth.
Untold Secrets. And what's the date on it?
The date on it is... Well, I'm sure if you just type it into.
You can't look in the opening of the book and get what the publication date is. Is it self-published or is it a regular publisher?
First printing was in January 2012.
2012.
So copyright 2012.
Okay, thank you. I'll be looking into that, and I'll probably do an evolution hour on it to find out a little bit about him.
Well, what are these, for example, right here? Of it. Okay,
You are aware that occasionally a fraud does pop up in some of these things, like the silly.
Yes, and that's why I mean, like, for example, I did actually, source check significantly the Cambodia Stegosaurus, and
how did you go about what source checking did you do on that?
Well, for one, I started off by going to the evolutionary literature itself and seeing what they make of this. So, for example, what I've seen in regards to the Cambodia Stegosaurus, it could be a pig, it could be a variety of things.
Why do you use the word evolutionary literature on that? Why do you use that term?
Well, I like to, I'm not going to go to a young Earth creationist, say, website or source to see if they're concluding that it's a stegosaurus. So actually, Answers in Genesis has a technical paper out.
Christopher says the painting was made in 1990. I'll be interested to find out if I can confirm that. Now, if that painting turns out to have been made in 1990 and not in prehistoric times, would that alter your perception of it?
Well, for example, it depends. These Australian Aborigines, are they aware of these plesiosaur-like animals? Are they, like, for example, in the Congo, in Africa, a lot of these...
No, that's not the question I asked. If it turns out the painting was made in 1990, would that alter your perception of its significance as an eyewitness account of a living plesiosaur?
Well, I wouldn't say that any of these, paintings are just. I'm not going to be able to just show this to you and say, "Bam! Here's just, some points of data that fit well within our."
Now let's put a gauntlet down here. Let's put a gauntlet down here. If I discover that there was doubt being raised about this painting recently, and I'm able to find it fairly quickly, then we'll have to ask why you didn't find any indications of that. So I repeat, what research did you do to try to convince yourself that that painting was a legitimate one?
Well, what I got here on Bishop Bell's Dinosaurs is the fact that this was in the 15th century.
No. Let's stick with the painting from the Aborigines. That's what we're trying to talk about. Don't gish gallop on me.
Right here? Right here?
Yeah, that one. I'm trying to find out, when you saw this painting in that book, what efforts did you undertake to establish that this was what the author was purporting it to be, which is an ancient Aboriginal painting? What dating did he give to it? How long old did he claim it was?
Well, for this exact painting, the thing is, 1990, 1890, the fact is it's these Australian Aborigines who, they're not you know,
Oh, it makes a
how
way.
how aware they are of the science of paleontology? Are they just making this up? Are they just saying,
What
yeah,
date
I've
did
seen this in a
he give
textbook?
for the age of the painting? Or did he
Oh,
give any date for the age of the painting?
well, CRISPR just said, what did he say, 1960?
No.
Did
I'm
you?
asking what you have the book. What date does he give to the painting?
Let me see here.
And why didn't you include this information in your PowerPoint, and as well as the name of the source?
Well, I mean, if you want to just, you know, wave these away and just resort to your, you know, usual source method way of debating, which is fine, you know, that's fine. But I don't really think it's helping the case, because the name of this debate is, could dinosaurs have coexisted with man?
And the answer is no.
How do you feel about? Okay, I
Could
don't have it
Therapsis-
right in front
How
of me for
about
that, but I know
Therapsis?
for a fact. Well, I
How
know
about
for the I know.
Therapsis?
Well, first off, I know for a fact that this one, in the 15th century, if not until the 1800s, these dinosaur fossils were actually found in bulk. Okay, so how did they perfectly right here?
So what's that little picture there? Oh, let's try to make sense out of what that is. You got something on the front end, and then you have something supposedly intertwined, so they got long necks. Now, is long that necks? Yeah? So if you were being told,
like always depicting.
By the way, what's the scale on that?
Well, I believe it is like, for example, you have the actual tomb itself.
Can you just say you don't know?
Carvings. The actual scale of it, I don't have on me.
Thank you. It's a real simple. It's a big step forward when you don't know the answer to something to just say you don't know the answer. So we don't know whether this thing is a band. Judging by the size of the writing, I suspect it's probably no more than maybe an inch or so tall, maybe an inch and a half. So we're talking about a thin band of decorative material. Have you conducted a study of the various decorative motifs in medieval English architecture as to what kind of images they come up with, and whether or not this was a stylized who knows what?
Well, I'm looking in, because I actually did find this. He's got detailed pictures of all the different images. It looks like there's a bat, there's a fish, there's a bird, there's a dog, and then
and you got this information from where?
This is from the book Untold Secrets of.
Okay, so you are again relying on Vance Nelson.
I thought you've been studying this for years. Is this the first time you've seen these images? I'm sure.
Oh no, I've seen every single one of those before. They're routinely put up in young Earth creationist documentation on here. I'm trying to find out whether you have at any point gone beyond your source base to look at the bigger context of them.
Well, for the bigger context of it, would you just wave away all of the historical accounts, all of the stories, all of the legends of dragons, legends from all cultures around the world, all the different ones?
What do you mean by what evidence do you have that they're in all cultures?
Here, just one sec. I'm going to stop sharing this one. So what evidence do I have that they're in all cultures? I mean, you can find dragon legends from England to China to America to, I mean,
that's the whole world. You said all cultures.
Significantly possible. Even in the dictionary, I think 100 years ago, next to dragon,
a dragon legend.
Well, we can find these drawings, mosaic sculptures, paintings, you know, let's see, Egypt, Europe, Australia, North America. I mean, all over the earth from what I can see. Maybe there's one or two cultures that.
Maybe you have a limited sense of all over the earth.
They all come from a main source, I mean, the point is all of this, you know, we don't really have to just wave it away. I mean, if we believe in the Bible and the word dinosaur wasn't invented until 1841, and we believe dinosaurs and man must have coexisted, well, we would assume, okay, dinosaurs must have been described all throughout history. There must have been a different name given to them. And what do we find?
I know you're back to the mantra. Now let's try to explore a little bit more about what the actual
point of the debate, could dinosaurs and man coexist?
Are there dragon depictions with wings?
Of course, because legends often become embellished over time, and all of a sudden that prince that saved the princess from the dragon, all of a sudden that dragon becomes fire-breathing and has wings. That's just how legends are. They become embellished. How
are crocodiles depicted in ancient art?
Actually, I think I had some pictures of crocodiles in ancient art. Crocodiles being, you could probably find crocodiles, especially some of the giant crocodiles, being embellished. I don't. How are
Hi,
they?
Bill.
Share screen and show us.
Hi, Bill Ludlow. He mentions Adrian Mayer's book. He's read it at least.
How come it seems like? I think it was Carl Sagan who tried to explain the dragons of legends in one of his books. I don't think the book was. I think it was called Dragons.
He was an astrophysicist. He was an astrophysicist. So
yeah,
I'm kind of curious.
He still acknowledged, okay, there are these multitude of dragon legends around the.
I'm kind of curious. Well, there's the whole point about what these dragon legends consist of and how
what
much
were these dragons?
But how much paleontology do you read, Standing?
Well, what is paleontology? How much paleontology do I have to know to look at these historical accounts and read them for myself and look at these legends of dragons?
Oh, but have you read them for yourself? It sounds like you're getting a lot of stuff from secondary sources.
Yes, for
example, Beowulf. Did you read the original Beowulf text to find out how it compared to that, or did you get that from a secondary source?
From the Beowulf, obviously I didn't read the old English.
Well, you don't have to read it in the original medieval English. That's gibberish. It sounds like German. But the point is,
don't know how to speak medieval English,
did you read the Beowulf text in its modern translations directly, or did you get the Beowulf story as glossed for you by some secondary source? That's a yes or no question.
I read the account. It probably would have been through a secondary source, yes.
See, there's again.
What does that have to do with it? What I read
because Standing, you don't
get it from a primary source, the Beowulf account.
You don't get the fact that you are resting on a mountain of secondary redaction. You've done this with the genetic material, with Jensen and Samford and all the rest. You do it here with this example.
Well, are you saying Dr. Nathaniel Jensen, Dr. John Sanford, are you saying that they take the easy way out and don't do their due diligence when it comes to their work? I mean, Dr. John,
I do exactly say that. I know for a fact that Sanford misrepresented the Kimura paper.
Well, I mean, Kimura, at the end of the day, did he actually? Yes, he did say that beneficial mutations are going to counterbalance.
In the paper that Sanford cited and never, ever mentioned it.
Who's looked at it more than Dr. John Sanford? The near neutral zone, the no selection zone, versus the beneficial mutations. Who's looked at it more than Dr. Sanford?
Yeah, we're probably getting into a digression here. If you want to call us to a halt on this, Jim, let us know. But I've been itching to deal with this issue for quite some time. If you want to give us free reign, we got what? How many? About 10 minutes left-ish?
We've got about 5 minutes.
Okay, well, you know what? No, okay, we can go into that, but I think this is important too, because we did spend some time there on the artwork for a while. I want to hear how you explain, because I did ask you in my rebuttal, okay?
Yeah.
How could soft, stretchy tissue, and I'm going to give you ample time to answer the question, how could soft, stretchy tissues actually be preserved in dinosaur remains that evolutionists claim are no younger than 65 million years old? And I don't want you to give an answer like, oh, Mary Schweitzer was, a devoted Christian. We all know she's...
No, well, then put a period to your sentence so I can answer you.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. The whole point is, as Schweitzer demonstrated in her technical paper about the processes, particularly involving iron, that can permit those sorts of things to occur, of which every single one of them is microscopically small in size. Almost all of the creationists that I've ever seen that have gone into this neglect to mention the scale of it. So that this is not something like Ötzi the Iceman, that's a well-preserved, massive body that's got all sorts of tissues intact. No, there are 0 examples of that anywhere in the paleontological record. All of the stuff that Schweitzer has come up with, and for the same matter, Armitage's Triceratops horn,
I was going to ask you that one. So,
inside of steel containers. And they have been treated with a variety of chemical areas, which is questionable whether or not the conclusions are what he wants to be. It's one of the reasons why he was let go from his position, because he was just leaping beyond what the actual data field was. Now,
what was Mary Schweitzer's explanation for how, like, is she suggesting that iron was able to act as a
Did you
preservative?
not, in all of these years, the paper I think came out 5 years ago, in all of this time, your curiosity has been so lame that you've never thought to look it up? It's available. It's, I think,
Of,
at PNAS.
of course, I know that in 2005 is when Mary Schweitzer actually discovered this fossilized T-Rex femur. But as of lately, after that, I think it was in 2012 and so on, she has been doing work in regards to.
Have you kept up with not only her papers on dinosaurs, but also on turtles and other soft tissue in those? Have you read those?
Well, for one, I'll answer that question, but at the end of the day, you're not really.
I just did answer the question that the material that is preserved is not giant masses of tissue. They are microscopic particles that are still found intact, buried inside of bones, in contexts in which it is not at all implausible that they could have survived for 100 million years, let alone.
Is that biofilm you're talking about? The microorganisms who?
No, read her bloody papers.
Well, from what I've seen, that those types of claims have not actually withstood.
That's the problem from what you've seen, and it seems as though, Standing, you don't look very far.
Is it not true that on Letters to a Creationist, who a lot of evolutionists look to attempt to refute Dr. John Sanford, didn't he say in one of his blogs or one of his writings there that there hasn't been an actual there has been these suggestions here, there has been, this explanation there, but nothing has actually been conclusive in explaining away these observations? Or are you saying that it is now conclusive that or is this just, is it more than just storytelling, I guess?
I'll stand on the fact that none of her recent work, which is collaborative, it's not just her, has gotten any a pushback from the regular scientific community. When her findings were put out originally back in the 1990s, there was some quite legitimate skepticism that these might have been due to contamination.
1 minute
and
left.
the work, 1 minute left. The work eventually got more and more out, and that has obliterated. Now, you would think that if these supposedly blinded evolutionists with their millions of years really thought that this was a problem for their model, that they would be going after this tooth and tongue, but nobody is disputing.
Well, no, because they have that primary assumption that universal common ancestry is true, so everything has to be force-fitted into that paradigm.
It's not an assumption, it's an observation.
As creationists, well, obviously evolutionary scientists and you're not going to be willing, due to that basic assumption and worldview, to actually consider or conclude what I think is a very reasonable possibility that dinosaurs have lived recently and coexisted with man. I've shown you paintings, mosaics, I've shown you historical accounts, I've shown you data here in regards to soft dinosaur tissue.
Even I know. You got
haven't scientists even discovered and detected intact DNA from so-called ancient dinosaur bones? How do you explain? Is that the same type of...
I just did.
Time. You guys will each have a chance to respond during your closing statements as well as.
Yeah, we want to get to Q&A. I hope you've been writing down a bunch of questions.
Oh, I think I did the closings out of order. Sorry. So originally, I think we were going to do the closings.
Well, we would do closings
before
the Q&A, right?
Yes, we'll do the closings right now. Thanks.
Oh yeah, I can do it in whatever order. It doesn't matter. I mean, it'll be a quick summary of what we've already seen.
My eyes just jumped ahead. So 5-minute closings followed by 20 minutes of Q&A, and just want a quick mention. We want to give a shout out to Be The Match. We don't receive any money from them or anything. If anything, we're kind of sponsoring them because we want to get attention to Be The Match, which is a bone marrow.
Back in a flash, I got to get a Pepsi.
You got it. We basically Be The Match is a bone marrow donor organization. They cover all of your medical costs if you choose to donate, and your donation could save a life. So basically, people with, let's say, leukemia or cancer of the blood, if they have basically the same DNA as you and you're found in the registry, which you would be if you are willing to donate, then they will say, hey, we could use your help if you want to come in and donate. And like I said, they cover the medical costs, and you could potentially save a life. So with that, other house cleaning things, I had mentioned earlier that JMD Apologetics is doing a sweet debate on his channel. So I just want to give a chance for RJ to get back. That way he's able to hear Standing for Truth's closing. But JMD Apologetics excited that he has got a debate coming up on his channel. That is not tonight. However, tonight there is the Great Debate Community. And then on JMD Apologetics channel, it's instead of politics, his debate is going to be on... One sec, I'm pulling this up. Let's see. He is hosting the debate RC Apologists versus Praise on whether Calvinism is true, and that's next Friday. So hope you, if you enjoy theology, hope you can check that out. We just want you to know about debates, no matter where they're happening, no matter what channel. Hope you can decide for yourself whether it be a Christian channel, atheist channel, neutral channel. You can at least know where those debates are as we try to let you know. So we are now going to move over to the 5-minute closing statements. Standing for Truth, the floor is yours.
Awesome, thank you. Well, you know what? This has been fun. I think it might have been meant to be that, James Downard here took the place of Skylar. It's been a very fun debate. It's been different, which is, I think, why I loved it so much. At the end of the day, yes, he does have rescue devices and stories for all of this, including the soft tissue in dinosaur bones. I mean, the discovery of soft tissues in dinosaur bones has actually become very much common and fairly common even among different dinosaur species. And he brought up the analysis of the Triceratops horn, and it contained original bone, soft tissue, and I think it even had, complete and very well preserved bone building cells, which are called osteocytes. So at the end of the day, he can try explaining all this away within our worldview, within the biblical based model. It all fits perfectly like a glove. The name of the debate, the title of the debate was, Can Man and Dinosaur Have Coexisted? And I think I've provided more than enough evidence that they did, and evidence that they certainly could. I mean, we see living fossils, for example, the coelacanth. We see that I believe it was a certain tree that was recently discovered that evolutionists even said was almost like finding a living dinosaur. I can't find the exact name of it right now, but at the end of the day, all that I've seen in regards to explanations of the mosaics and the paintings and the historical records is, well, you know what? The ancients must have found a bone, or they must have recreated these dinosaurs. But at the end of the day, as I demonstrated to RJ here, the science of paleontology didn't actually develop until the early 1800s. And the first complete dinosaur was not constructed until the 1800s. And bones, as he knows, they're separated, they're fragmented, they're embedded deep within the ground, mountains and rock, and most of them are even missing. So maybe they could have found, a piece of bone here and there, but they wouldn't be able to recreate these animals the way that we've seen in these in all this evidence. He has to, wave away the description of the behemoth. He has to avoid admitting that a hippo and an elephant, their tail clearly does not meet the description of moving like a cedar. From the Bible, we see that dragons are mentioned over and over again. Like I said, these historical accounts, soft tissue, intact DNA. Of course, like I said in the discussion, RJ, if he admitted this obvious, the obvious conclusion, it's going to call into question his entire evolutionary fairy tale, because as we know, that type of large scale pond scum to people evolution, it only occurs in the imagination of those that want to believe in it. We talked a little bit about the Congo pygmies and the Africans that describe animals And the descriptions are so similar. And we've got an evolutionary researcher here who is even concluding, and he believes in evolution, and he's concluding, yeah, there could possibly be living dinosaurs today. I mean, these Congo swamps, they comprise over 55,000 square miles, and it's mostly unexplored jungle and swamp. That is the same size of the entire state of Florida. And it's full of all kinds of poisonous snakes and mosquitoes, and expeditions and things like this make it almost impossible. But have all these pygmies and all these Africans and all these natives, have they just been lying? They're shown pictures of various animals as to, hey, what are these creatures that you've seen? Mokali and Mbembe, for example. And they say no to all the different pictures, and then they come across, a sauropod-looking dinosaur, and they say, that's him, that's him. So, I mean, are they lying? Have all these written accounts, have they all just been embellishments, dragon legends? So, I mean, the title of the debate, could dinosaurs and man coexist? I think I proved that, and I think I also proved that they did. So, thanks so much, James. It's been fun. I'm not sure how much more time that I have, but I'll, I guess, hand it over to the Q&A.
You bet. 30 seconds added to the Q&A. And with that, RJ, the clock is set for 5 minutes, and I will start it on your first word.
Okay, I took my little 5 minutes there to, while I was listening to him, to put a couple of Schweitzer's papers up. The osteocyte matter, those things, by the way, will spontaneously crystallize and will do so in living organisms. So their preservation is not at all shocking. And she was making use of a lot of this in her stuff, both on turtles and dinosaurs. And I put the references up to that paper. And also that 2014 one on the iron deposits, iron factor, that apparently SFT hasn't dealt with. So, what we have here is we have listened to an awful lot of rescue devices, but the rescue devices aren't involving primary source data. They're not involving the paleontology that the creationists don't have. The rescue devices that Standing makes use of involves his reading a relatively limited amount of apologetic literature, like that Vance book, and presuming that what is in it is correct, and not trying to determine whether or not the information that he's being presented is in fact correct. Any attempt to try to pull together material involving people's legends and paintings involves a need to look at their whole context of their culture, what things actually meant, and whether ethnographers, particularly ethnographers with an axe to grind, are deck stacking the material to meet a preconceived concept. So the notions that preconceptions and assumptions are entering into this factor on the pro-evolution side is not true. I want to see the evidence. I would be thrilled as pumpkins. And in fact, any paleontologist would sell their grandmother to get an example of a living dinosaur. The incentives of these things to find living plesiosaurs, the geneticists would be absolutely thrilled in the same way that they would have been if they had found an alien that they could autopsy. This would be absolutely staggeringly interesting material. So the idea that people wouldn't look into this and want to see such information is just twaddle. But the reason why none of this stuff ever bears fruit is because it's mythological. It's people's wishful thinking. The human beings make up stuff all the time. Just as people can make up movies involving Thanos and flying dragons in the Game of Thrones book, that's what human beings have done all along. They have vivid imaginations. Leonardo da Vinci, there was a thing where a creationist, creation.com, had Leonardo's dragon, where he was insisting that Leonardo actually saw a bit of it. And I was able to track down, in a matter of minutes, an original source of where a person on the artwork of Leonardo actually had his letters where he was talking about how he invented this stuff, and it wasn't involving actually seeing a living dinosaur. Why would we assume that wasn't happening all through the history of life? All you have from Standing for Truth is what you get from everything that he does. He is a secondary parasite, a bottom feeder, who draws off of material that he's very good at repeating, very good at putting together in the PowerPoints, but fact-checking it at source level, it literally doesn't occur to him to look into that. If you're going to bring up Schweitzer and soft tissue preservation, you jolly well better be aware of all the material, not just one side of things, not just a video from Armitage or something else, but actually read their material. And the fact that you do not find a pushback from the regular scientists on this is pretty good indication that it's because the preservation issue is not a problem for evolution. And so or the general chronology of things. So the fact that there are zero paleontological support for the coexistence of humans with anything that was alive in the Mesozoic is just a inherent problem. Coelacanths, I'll put a little brief reference into that. Those are not the same species as they were. Latimeria is not even the same genus. And in fact, the coelacanths have undergone quite a lot of evolution. They even have vestigial lungs that are detectable in their embryos. There's been an awful lot of study on them over the years, and none of that shows up in the creationist time element because they ignore most of this information. Standing is a monument to how reliance on secondary sources can lead you astray, and I got to flash a Tortugan alert on it. And there's the end of that. So let's go to add whatever time I've got onto the Q&A because we want questions.
You got it. Thanks so much. We will start the Q&A, which is going to be 21 minutes now with the extra time. And thanks so much for everyone's questions, for your likes, super chats, the channel engagement. We totally appreciate it, and it helps the channel a lot. So if you're at a spot, like we do our once a month charity stream, which we are excited to do in June. We're pretty sure we are going to do raise money where all the super chats will go during that debate to diabetes research. So we're looking forward to that. And if you're in a spot where you can't give during those streams, I want to let you know, like, you're helping this channel just by being here, which indirectly it's helping those charity streams. And so we just appreciate your support. One of the bigger things you can do for the channel is giving it a like, giving it a share. All that kind of stuff really does make a difference. So we really appreciate that. Next up, going through these super chats, Steven Steed, sorry Steven, thanks for your super chat. He says, 9:30 start time, almost bedtime, but seeing how much better the world is with James in it, worth the late bedtime and sleepless night. Thank you very much, Steven. That's
You paid him to say that, James.
Yeah.
Shank of the evening.
Anybody can see that you're lying.
I will pay you the $20 for that later, Steven. Thank you very much. Brian Stevens says, Mary Schweitzer found the
Schweitzer.
Thank you. Found the Standing for Truth tissue disagrees with soft tissue disagrees with Standing for Truth. Thanks for that super chat.
Remember, I've got in the link. If anybody follows up through that a bit, they'll be able to see the technical references from Proceedings in the National Academy of Sciences. You can find it that way, and therefore it's free, open access. Nobody has to take either one of our word for it. They can read the original.
Gotcha.
Well, and I just want to say that you can go look at on my channel some of the videos that Rob, Matt, and myself have made. You know, we talk about how, yes, Mary Schweitzer suggested that iron was able to act as a preservative over millions of years, and she says it's by cross-linking the soft tissue proteins to preserve its structural integrity. But it's only been shown that hemoglobin can be preserved for up to 2 years, and even this is highly concentrated iron solution that would not actually be expected to be found in the natural environment of the fossil. So like I said earlier, rescue device is storytelling. Mary Schweitzer, just like R.J. Downard, they
put that technical source up in the video description so everybody can track down on it, and we'll find out not the link to your video, but the technical source.
You can go look at the source itself, but it's not holding up to scrutiny.
Here's the point at issue.
I'm really sorry, you guys. We've got a ton of questions, and so I just want to see through these.
Anyway, put the source up so everybody can see the primary one there standing.
So Brian Stevens, thanks for your super chat. Canderman, thanks for your super chat. He says, RJ's instantly my hero. Standing for Truth's feet will get blisters. So you got a fan out there, Canderman.
Well, thank you.
Well, I know Candor Man wants to debate genetic entropy, so hopefully we can set that up. And Candor Man, he's got a hold to his evolutionary worldview as well, so he can't admit the obvious.
All right, hold on. I don't want to take up too much time. Cable Eastwood, thanks for your super chat. We appreciate it. They said, justice for Shani. I think I've heard of Shani for Christ.
Not sure what that means.
A YouTuber, but I don't know what's going on with Shani. I hope she's doing okay. Thanks for your super chat. And next up, Sigifredos Rabia, thanks for your super chat. He said, RJ, before the 1800s, what were fossils if not called? What were dinosaur fossils called if they were not called Dinosaur. I think that's what he said.
Oh, in fact, there is Adrian Meyer and others. Oh gosh, I've forgotten his name. He did a book on pterosaurs, and he had a whole section on how fossils got labeled. Some of the things that got labeled as dragons were not dinosaurs at all. They were mammals. They were Pleistocene ones. Things weathered out. People spotted stuff. It's certainly plausible, and Adrian Meyer has made the argument that some fossil legends are filtering through from actual fossil material. Things eroded out of mountainsides. People studied and looked at things. They tried to make sense of stuff. Once in a while, in particularly good cases, you would have fairly well articulated things weathering out. And so what else would they think but that these were some strange things? Sometimes they thought that they were the bones of people that lived in Noah's time, that if they saw a great big femur, they would think that it was one of the giants of the Bible. They tried to make sense out of all this stuff. And in one case, one guy back in, I think, the 1500s saw the bottom end of a femur and thought, because it looked like scrotum, he thought that it was the ball sack from some fossilized primeval man. And so they make all sorts of mistakes on this. And there's quite a lot of historical literature that's gone through and worked through all of this stuff. Human beings are going to be doing that. The issue is whether you can pin a young Earth creationist dogma on something so flimsy as just pictures of things that have their provenance issue, in some cases fictional. If this were so strong, if the arguments were so correct geologically, you would be seeing these creationists cite the primary source material in regards to specific deposits, particular animals, in particular contexts. They would be working out their whole flood concept in terms of what the paleoclimate was. But we don't see them doing that because they're never going to make all the facts fit. So they got to flush them down the drain the same way that Standing does with Schweitzer's 2014 paper that he didn't even read.
Next.
Well, let me respond to that real quick. Yeah, so I did. No, I get to say a little something to that because he just went on for a while. Dinosaur skeletons, as I said earlier, they're not just found lying on the ground intact, like he says. So someone walking by can look down and see what the dinosaur looked like. So at the end of the day, that's also, I mean, the process of digging out and excavating dinosaur bones from rock, like I said, it didn't even begin until the 1800s. So yeah, they might find, a single bone sticking out of a rock here or there, like he said, but that's pretty much all we find today. And logic would dictate that that's all anyone in ancient history would ever have found as well. So they're not going to be able to create the entire image of the entire beast without the entire skeleton. So once again, I would just conclude that that's more of a rescue device to avoid admitting and concluding the obvious. Thanks.
Oh, I'll just have to point out that's wrong on the paleontology aspect. Professional paleontology really started to get into the high gear in the 19th century, but digging for bones went all the way back to the Renaissance. Leonardo da Vinci was noticing these things. There was a long tradition of trying to make sense out of this.
When did they recreate the first
dinosaur skeleton? You guys, I'm so sorry, but just to get to as many questions as possible, we have time. The Random Explorer, thanks for your super chat. They said, great job, RJ. Drop the mic and debate over. So you got fan in the Random Explorer. Brian Stevens, thanks for your super chat. They had said 1,000 years from now, will Game of Thrones be evidence for dinosaurs? I'm sure if that's rhetorical.
Yes, for wonderful flying dragons. Which one of it you want to take that standing? I have a few things to say on it.
So you're talking, I'm not a huge Game of Thrones fan, but I imagine he's talking about the dragons in Game of Thrones. I mean, I just think it's fascinating in general that we find legends of dragons all around the world, and these descriptions and pictures fit what we know about dinosaurs. I just think that that's fascinating, and once again fits well within my worldview. And of course, legends are embellished. Like I said, all of a sudden that T-Rex that was killed, and story after story and generation after generation, all of a sudden that T-Rex can blow fire and have wings. I mean, that's just how legends develop and evolve.
Oh, John Pelosi mentions the sphinxes, quite common in old Egypt land, big lions with the heads of human women. I don't think anyone's claiming any of those were real. But the thing about the flying dragons...
We know dinosaurs exist. We don't know aliens
really
exist.
Well, we know lions and women existed.
Let's see. I think originally it was for Standing for Truth, so we've got to keep it going. Sija Fredo Sarabia, thanks so much for your super chat. They said, Standing for Truth, if dinosaurs were in the Ark, why did swimmers and flyers die? I think he's referring to animals that could swim or fly. I think he's saying, like, why did they die if dinos were on the ark?
So
Yeah, and how many were on the ark?
representatives.
Hold on
Well,
one second.
let's answer one question at a time. So representatives of dinosaurs, yes, would have been on the ark. Bring young adolescents. Of course, you're not going to have full-sized, long-necked dinosaurs or gigantosaurus or whatever. But why did these water so-called dinosaurs and pterosaurs and stuff, why did they die too? Is that his question? I don't really.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a good one.
obviously
Oh.
your pterodactyls and your pterosaurs and stuff. I mean, they're probably going to be able to fly as long as possible, but eventually, they're going to gas out and fall and drown. But I'm not too sure what. See, the thing
I
is, the
think that was
prefrontal.
one. That's a great question. I never heard that.
Why did bats make it and pterosaurs didn't?
Hold on. Well, I want to give Standing of Truth a chance to answer this first question, and then we can, we got to move to the next one. But do you feel good about that, Sandy?
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that flying animals of any kind are not going to be able to fly forever. And then, see, the thing is, a lot of the diversity that we see in the fossil record, if we're only getting representatives of these animals, what you're going to see is mass extinction of animals that would never be seen today. I mean, if every single dog today died, and supposedly there was a global flood, and there was somebody who was said to bring 2 of every kind, and they brought 2 generic wolves. Well, what are you going to find thousands of years later in the fossil record? You're going to find.
But you didn't answer the question about the bats. Why did pterosaurs?
Hold on. I know,
Why
SJ,
did
I'm
bats
so
make
sorry,
it and
SJ. I'm sorry, SJ. Just to get to as many questions from the audience as possible, given the limited time, I've got to keep going. Citrafredo Sarabia, thanks for your super chat. He said, RJ, are there fossils of humans over 10 feet tall in the fossil record?
Nope. This is one that, though, plays in with an awful lot of the lore you get with that Nephilim stuff. There's a bunch of people I encounter on Twitter that, again, traipse off of websites that make these assertions. And so the short answer is no.
Gotcha. Next up, Dragnot Silvas, thanks for your super chat. And they asked, Standing for Truth, what is falsification criteria for your model?
Well, it depends what model he's referring to, because here we're talking about dinosaurs. If I'm going to be looking to, create a heterozygosity model, and I'm not sure what type of model he wants in regards to dinosaurs and dragons, but I mean, there's certain falsification criteria based on like created heterozygosity model, or I'm not sure what model is he referring to. Is he referring to the flood geology model?
I'm not sure.
Well, flood geology isn't much of a model. Let's just kind of be specific in our case. Did Adam and Eve have ALUs in their genome?
Well, we know ALUs,
Just
we know viruses, we know their functional.
I just don't want to go down a rabbit trail. I'm really sorry about that. Forgive me. Standing for Truth.
Diversification.
Sorry,
so yeah,
Standing
I
for
would say
Truth.
that they were.
We have to keep going. I appreciate
We gotta keep going.
Yes, they were.
Thank you for your responses, though. I hate cutting you guys off. I appreciate that you guys are spirited. Ronald Medanka, Standing for Truth is the comment. Standing for Truth, you have enough time to research these creationist things. You should have enough time to read an actual science book, I would think. Ooh, he's coming at you. Standing for Truth.
Ooh. Who said that? We can.
I don't know his real name, but it's Ronald Medanka on YouTube.
If he wants to set up an evolutionism versus creation debate, I'd be more than happy. Actually, me and RJ have done one of those. I recommend everyone.
Oh, yeah, and I'm always willing to defend the science at any opportunity.
Maybe we should do one specifically on genetic entropy, since we almost went on a full rabbit trail there.
Yeah.
We stopped ourselves.
Bring it on.
You got it. We appreciate it. And thanks.
I'm going to convert you one day, RJ.
Thank you
No, you're
very
not.
much.
Not
Thank
unless
you.
I can get a lobotomy that will make me forget all the data I know.
All right.
Maybe that can be done.
Thank you for your super chat, Ronald. We appreciate it. Sigifredo Saravia, thanks for your super chat as well. He asked, Standing for Truth, why did dinosaurs die compared to other beasts? If the flood was scarce, if food was scarce, why did food, quote unquote, evolve smaller? If natural disasters, why layered fossils and 6,000 years?
That was kind of a lot of random questions. And is he talking about why did, I think it all comes down to burial by ecosystems and habitats as well. I mean, the thing is, the global flood rearranged the entire landscape. And if you actually look at the description of the pre-flood world in the Bible, the land of Eden, we're told, a river flows out of Eden. And for a fact, rivers flow downhill. That means Eden was obviously at a higher elevation. Where were, mammals? Where were dinosaurs, for example? We know that dinosaurs lived in swampy lowland areas. And I think
False.
it all comes down to, you're saying false? Are you saying
Yeah.
are you saying we don't find,
Give me one
dinosaurs?
sec. So sorry, guys. We just have to keep tracking.
Yeah, that's simply
Get through
false.
as
And
many
I recommend
questions.
anybody try to look up the various papers on the paleogeography and the distribution of things, the forest living, land, not swamps. This is a
One sec. I
mythology
just
that
wanna.
somehow or other
This
standing is
technically the super chat was for standing. Sigifredo Sarabia has another question, or I guess standing. If you want to ask one of the other ones that was packed into that super chat, you can. Which is one: why did dinosaurs die compared to other animals? And second, if food was scarce, why did food evolve to be smaller? And if natural disasters, why layered fossils in 6,000 years old?
Well, I already explained the layering of the fossils. I would say just go on to the next question because we only got 5 minutes. We should get as many as possible.
Gotcha. Next up, thanks so much, Sigifredo. And Jason Morris, thanks for your super chat. He asked, for standing for truth, do you ever have doubts when the ratio of evidence is overwhelmingly against your position? Love the channel, by the way. Thanks for your love for the channel, and thanks for your super chat for standing for truth. We'll let you respond standing for truth.
Well, I think he's got a built-in assumption there that the evidence for, universal common ancestry is overwhelming, which we know it's not. We know based on, mutation accumulation, everything about genetics points to a biblical-based model. We know that it points to, Y chromosome Adam, mitochondrial Eve. RJ and I have already had a debate on all this, but the evidence is not overwhelming. The evidence actually suggests that we're devolving and not evolving. So, no, there is no doubt, since his question is based on a built-in assumption that the evidence is abundant, and it's not. So,
gotcha. Next up, sorry about that, scattered. The other questions as well. Joseph Sekovec, thanks for your question. It's coming at you, standing. He said, has standing for lies worked up the courage to debate Aaron Ra? So, sorry.
Well, no, that's okay. Like I said, I mean, if I'm debating, evolutionary proponents such as RJ Downard, Godless Engineer, Jackson Lead, I have no problem debating Aaron Ra. I'll do it next week. All he has to do is contact James at Modern Day Debate. We'll set up some type of structure. We can have a discussion portion like I just did with RJ Downard. I don't see Aaron Ra being any more of a threat or any more intelligent than someone like RJ Downard. So I don't know why people would think that I'm intimidated over Aaron Ra and not RJ Downard himself. So yeah, if he agrees to some type of format, I'm more than happy to debate him. I think it'd be great. It'd be a huge turnout. Everybody would have fun.
Just call me RJ. It saves time.
RJ in the house.
RJ is
no,
in
I'm
the
not
house.
scared. Let's set it up in the future.
Thank you. And yeah, we are in contact with Mr. Ra. We are seeing what might come out of it. So hopefully we'll get maybe a chance to have him on the show. We've never had him, but he seems really pleasant. He's actually, like, over email, he's just extremely kind and polite. And so next up, praise I am that I am.
Talking about the same, Aaron.
Well, I don't know what everybody else's experiences are. I know that ours have been good. So praise I am that I am. Thanks for your question. My question is to RJ. He said, RJ, how did humans know that dinosaurs thousands of years ago? How did humans know about dinosaurs thousands of years ago? From your perspective, like, how do you explain?
Oh, well, that's the whole issue. Is did they? See, the whole underpinning of the young Earth creationist arguments here are that selectively picked out images that can be made to look like particular critters means that they had to have seen them when there was such an enormous range of chimerical animals. Even one of the arguments trying to figure out what the hell the gold guarding winged lions. Yipes, I'm having a brain fart here. But anyway, that Myers argued was based on the Protoceratopsids. There was a posting, I think either by Brian Switek or Darren Naish, that was really calling that into doubt, because there was so much variation about how these animals were referred to in the actual literature and how they were depicted visually. And the difficulties with all of these cryptozoology texts is that they're cherry picking individual isolated images. They're not, as we did with and you can see the structure of the Cambodian example, is that one image can be taken out of context. But if you look at how the art depicts lots of different things, you can see maybe this doesn't mean what you think it is. And you're trying to read it in the same way that Eric von Daniken was treating King Pakal sitting on the Tree of Life as a rocket launcher and inside of a spaceship. It was entirely because of what he's expecting it to be so. And likewise, we know about the ethnography of things. Some of the tales that are written down by ethnographers can be tailored by what was being told to them earlier. There's aspects of the Dogon supposed claims that they were aware of an invisible star in the Sirius system was something due to bad ethnography. If you don't look at those background details and simply riff off of the secondary sources, you won't notice any of that stuff. So no, I don't think any dinosaur was ever seen by any human being, because there's tens of millions of years difference between them. And so it's just a matter of people misinterpreting post hoc selected images.
Gotcha.
Well, I think RJ puts it perfectly there when you said, did they? Because the debate does all come down to whether or not did they.
I'm sorry.
Well, it looks like time's up here anyways, so my baby's up. I'm going to have to call her quits. It's been a good 20-minute Q&A, though, so if you want to wrap it up.
There's never enough time for Q&A.
Never enough time.
That's true.
Yeah.
We are out of time.
I got a youngster.
We actually, I think it would be fun if you would arrange not a debate, but a giant Q&A, to where we get questions from the audience and just do a whole thing that way, because everybody knows our positions. You know, do we need to see another PowerPoint of the same thing? And have a Q&A show.
I think that'd be fun, and let's make it all topics to do with creation, evolution.
Yeah. Open mic, where we get to be put on the spot and have at it, because that is important. Now, give me a damn wrench so I can post technical papers.
You bet. We're glad we had both of you here. So this has been a blast, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you asking your questions as well, everybody. Sorry we didn't get to a lot of them. Really sorry about that.
Save them for the Q&A show that you and I arranged to do with Standing for Truth. And given the fact that I had zero time to prepare for this, that's not too bad.
Let's do it. That sounds fun.
That'd be a lot of fun. So with that, we want to say thanks for coming by, everybody. Keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable, and have a good night.